Section 1. The Brain as a Silent Universe of Light. If you could drift quietly into the space inside your own skull, you might expect darkness, a still, quiet void sealed off from the outside world. But the reality within is far more extraordinary. It is a universe made not of stars, but of signals. Not of galaxies, but of branching cells reaching toward one another like glowing trees in an electric forest. And every moment of your life, every thought, memory, sensation, fear, joy, or dream is born from this silent universe of light. The brain produces no sound as it works. If it had a voice, it would speak in tiny flashes of electricity, little sparks leaping across the microscopic gaps between neurons. Each spark represents information moving from one cell to the next, a cascade of signals that form the architecture of your entire experience. More than 80 billion neurons inhabit this space, and each one can connect to thousands of others. The number of possible connections, according to neuroscientists, is larger than the number of stars in the observable universe. When you pause and truly imagine that, the scale becomes almost overwhelming, and yet it all fits quietly inside the fragile casing of your skull. This section is not about how the brain works in a mechanical sense. It is about appreciating its hidden magnificence, the quiet immensity of what happens beneath consciousness. Most of what your brain does, it does without your awareness. Your heart rate, your breathing rhythm, the calibration of your balance, the regulation of your body temperature, the constant scanning of the environment for danger, all of it orchestrated by neural networks that never introduce themselves, never ask for recognition, and never demand your attention. Their silence is a sign of harmony. They operate smoothly because they evolved over millions of years to do so. But beyond these automatic processes, something even more intriguing occurs. As you read this sentence, your brain is not simply absorbing information. It is predicting. It is anticipating the next word before your eyes reach it. It is shaping meaning from symbols and light. It is pulling from memories, language patterns, emotional associations, and sensory inputs to create understanding in real time. You notice the result, comprehension, but not the hidden machinery that produces it. Like a planet that rotates without your awareness of its motion, the brain performs vast amounts of work beneath a surface of calm. One of the most remarkable mysteries of the brain is that it creates your experience of reality, yet it never directly experiences the outside world. Your eyes do not send pictures to your brain. Your ears do not send sound. Instead, every sense converts the world into electrical signals, and the brain interprets those signals, crafting its best guess of what is happening around you. In a way, you live not in the world itself, but in a beautifully detailed simulation constructed moment by moment inside your head. Scientists call this perceptual construction, but the term does not quite capture the elegance of the process. This constructed reality is stable enough that you can navigate life confidently, but flexible enough that two people can experience the same moment in vastly different ways. A smell that comforts one person may unsettle another. A particular shade of blue may feel peaceful to you and cold to someone else. The brain colors the world with personal meaning, filling it with emotional textures that shape how you move through each day. And fascinatingly, This private universe inside your head is always in motion. Even when you sit still, even when you feel you are doing nothing, the brain is humming with activity. There is a network inside called the default mode network, a beautifully poetic name for the system that activates when the mind drifts. It is responsible for daydreaming, imagination, internal dialogue, and the soft, wandering thoughts that come when you stare out a window or lie awake at night. We tend to think of stillness as empty, but the brain is never empty. It is constantly creating, evaluating, remembering, or imagining. Silence on the outside is not silence on the inside. Scientists still don't fully understand the purpose of this internal activity. Some believe the default mode network allows us to simulate possible futures, practicing scenarios before they occur. Others think it helps consolidate our sense of identity, weaving memories into a coherent story of who we are. And some propose that this wandering network is the source of creativity, connecting distant ideas, forming new combinations that might not emerge when the mind is actively focused. Whatever the explanation, one thing is clear. The human brain does its most mysterious work when it appears to be doing nothing at all. Another hidden power lies in the brain's ability to reshape itself. It is constantly rewiring. Neurons grow new branches, strengthen certain connections, and weaken others depending on what you learn, experience, practice, or even imagine. This ongoing transformation, called neuroplasticity, means that the brain is never fixed. It is fluid, malleable, shaped by every moment of life. Even simple experiences, like hearing a new sound or learning a new word, subtly alter neural circuits. Your brain today is not the same as it was yesterday, nor will it be the same tomorrow. This dynamic nature means that the brain is both incredibly fragile and incredibly resilient. Injuries can disrupt networks, but those networks can sometimes reorganize in surprising ways, rerouting functions through alternate pathways. People who lose parts of their brain can sometimes recover abilities others believed were permanently lost. Even more astonishing, simply imagining an action, like practicing piano in your mind, can activate the same neural patterns as physically doing it, leading to real improvements. The boundary between imagination and physical experience is far thinner than we once assumed. As you sit with these ideas, let them feel gentle rather than overwhelming. You are not expected to master the brain's complexity. Instead, allow yourself to feel the quiet amazement of knowing that inside your head is a universe that works tirelessly to build your world, shape your identity, protect your body, and allow you to exist with awareness. In its silence, it carries immense power. And perhaps the most beautiful truth of all is this: the brain contains more possibilities than any map we have ever drawn, and most of its universe remains unexplored. Section 2, Memory, the brain's quiet time machine. Memory is often described as a recording, something like a collection of photographs, videos, and files stored deep inside the brain. But this comforting idea is not entirely true. The brain does not keep perfect records. It does not maintain an archive where every moment of your life has been neatly saved, waiting to be retrieved. Instead, memory is a living, changing, shifting process. More like a story the brain retells each time you recall it. And with each retelling, the story changes, often in subtle and unnoticeable ways. Imagine for a moment a memory from your childhood. Perhaps you see a room, a face, sunlight, a toy, or a familiar smell. When you recall that memory, the brain reconstructs it from scattered fragments stored across multiple regions. The visual cortex contributes the images, the auditory cortex adds sounds, the hippocampus stitches the sequence together, and the emotional centers color it with feeling. What you remember is a collaboration between many networks, coming together to create something that feels like revisiting the past, even though it is being rebuilt anew, right now, in this moment. This constant reconstruction means your memories are not fixed. They breathe, they evolve, they fade, strengthen, reshape, and reinterpret themselves as you grow. What once felt frightening may become humorous years later. What once felt insignificant may become meaningful. This fluid nature of memory can feel unsettling at first, but it is actually a sign of the brain's remarkable adaptability. Your memories grow as you do, allowing your identity to stay flexible rather than rigid. If memories were fixed, you would remain the same person forever, unable to reinterpret or evolve your understanding of your own life. There is a gentle comfort in knowing that memory is not about perfect recall, but about personal meaning. The brain stores the emotional essence of a moment with more durability than the details. For example, you may not remember exactly what words were spoken during a special conversation, but you remember how it made you feel. You may forget the color of the walls in your childhood home, but you remember the sense of safety or the sense of curiosity it gave you. This emphasis on emotional memory is one of the brain's hidden powers. It prioritizes what shapes your inner world rather than what merely fills it. Deep inside the brain, a small seahorse-shaped structure called the hippocampus serves as the gateway to memory formation. It does not store memories forever, but it determines which experiences become memories at all. The hippocampus acts like a filter, deciding without your awareness what is important enough to encode. It tends to prioritize experiences that are novel, emotionally charged, or relevant to your future. Ordinary, repetitive moments often pass through without being stored. This is why you rarely remember the details of your commute or the hundreds of routine tasks you perform each week. The brain quietly protects you from being overwhelmed by filtering out the unnecessary. But the hippocampus is only one part of the memory system. Long-term memories, especially emotional ones, eventually migrate to other regions, including the cortex. This migration can take days, weeks, or even years, and neuroscientists still do not fully understand how it works. It appears that memories are slowly rewritten in a more stable form, distributed across networks that make them more resilient to time. The brain, in this sense, behaves like an artist revising a painting. It adds layers, adjusts colors, clarifies shapes, and blends the edges until the memory feels settled. What makes memory even more mysterious is that it can be triggered by the smallest cues: a smell, a sound, a fraction of a melody, the texture of an object, the angle of the afternoon light. These triggers can reach deep into the brain and pull out memories long thought forgotten. Scents, in particular, have a special power because the pathways for smell connect directly to emotional and memory centers. This is why the smell of rain, pine, cinnamon, or old books can transport you across years in an instant, bringing with it waves of emotion that feel strangely delicate, almost dreamlike. Yet memory is not only about the past. The same networks the brain uses to remember are also the ones it uses to imagine the future. When you picture where you might be next week, or how a conversation might unfold, your brain is drawing from the same systems that reconstruct old memories. This overlap suggests that memory exists not to preserve the past, but to prepare you for the future. Knowing what has happened helps your brain anticipate what could happen, allowing you to navigate life with more confidence and less uncertainty. This blending of past and future makes memory feel deeply human. You are not simply a collection of stored events. You are the ongoing story created every time your brain revisits, reshapes, or reimagines your experiences. Your identity is built from this narrative, a constantly updated autobiography that only you can tell. And although memories can fade, the lessons, emotions, and meanings they leave behind continue to shape you. Another hidden power of memory lies in forgetting. It may seem counterintuitive, but forgetting is not a failure. It is an essential function. If the brain remembered everything, it would become overwhelmed with details. Forgetting helps remove clutter, allowing you to focus on what matters most in the present moment. It also helps heal. Painful memories can soften over time, not because they disappear, but because the brain gradually reduces their emotional intensity, a natural process that protects your well-being. Even more remarkable is the brain's ability to form new memories throughout your entire life. For many years, scientists believed the brain stopped producing new neurons after childhood. But recent research shows that the hippocampus continues to generate new neurons well into adulthood, a process known as neurogenesis. These new neurons may help form new memories, adapt to change, and maintain emotional resilience. The brain is not a static organ that slowly decays over time. It is constantly renewing, reorganizing, and refining itself. Memory is not always accurate, but it is always meaningful. It is not a camera, it is a storyteller. It does not capture the world perfectly. It shapes it into something personal, something you can carry. And in this way, memory becomes one of the brain's most beautiful abilities, a bridge between who you were, who you are, and who you might become. And perhaps the most profound truth about memory is this: your brain is not trying to remember your life, it is trying to understand it. Section 3. Consciousness, the brain's quiet flame. Consciousness is one of the most mysterious and delicate phenomena in the universe. It is the invisible presence behind your thoughts, the awareness that observes your emotions, the subtle thread that ties together sensations, memories, decisions, desires, and identity. Yet for all its importance, consciousness has no fixed location in the brain. It is not stored in a single region, nor does it flicker like a light in a specific corner of neural tissue. Instead, consciousness arises from networks, vast, interconnected webs of neurons that communicate in patterns so complex that science still cannot fully describe them. To understand consciousness, imagine standing in a dark room where thousands of tiny lights suddenly blink on. Each represents a neuron firing. A single light by itself means little, but when clusters of lights pulse in rhythm, when waves of activation sweep across the room, when sparks leap from one cluster to another, something new emerges, a pattern. This pattern is not physical, but experiential. It is you. The sensation of having a thought is the result of billions of coordinated electrical and chemical signals interacting in fractions of a second. But where does this feeling of being you actually come from? Neuroscientists do know that certain networks, particularly those in the cortex and thalamus, contribute significantly to consciousness. The thalamus acts like a conductor, coordinating the flow of sensory information. The cortex interprets, analyzes, predicts, imagines, and evaluates. Together, they form an elegant cycle in which perception becomes awareness, and awareness becomes experience. But this explanation does not fully capture the beauty of consciousness. It does not explain why you experience the color blue as calming, why a melody can feel nostalgic, or why you can reflect on your own thoughts and ask, "Who am I?" Another intriguing aspect of consciousness is that it is not constant. Throughout the day, your level of awareness shifts in gentle waves. When you wake in the morning, your consciousness emerges slowly, rising from the quiet, drifting landscape of sleep. During moments of deep focus, your awareness narrows, sharpening like a laser. During meditation or daydreaming, it expands, becoming softer and more fluid. The brain can even temporarily lose consciousness during sleep, anesthesia, seizures, or injury, and regain it, as though the flame can be dimmed but not extinguished as long as the neural architecture remains intact. Sleep itself reveals much about the nature of consciousness. When you drift into dreams, the brain generates vivid experiences that feel real. Despite the lack of sensory input, entire worlds arise within you: people, colors, landscapes, emotions. In this way, dreaming shows that consciousness does not require the outside world at all. It can generate its own reality. This internal movie illustrates the brain's capacity to simulate possibilities, a hidden evolutionary advantage. Dreams may allow the brain to rehearse danger, problem-solve creatively, or organize emotional experiences from the day before. They also hint at how flexible and imaginative consciousness truly is. A deeper mystery appears when considering self-awareness. Humans are not only conscious, they are conscious of being conscious. You can observe your thoughts. You can question your beliefs. You can imagine alternate versions of yourself or reflect on your place in the universe. This reflective awareness arises from a set of brain regions known as the default mode network, which activates when your mind is at rest. When you are not focused on anything external, your brain turns inward. It begins to contemplate, wander, reminisce, or imagine. It is during these quiet inward moments that the brain's hidden architecture reveals itself most clearly. One of the most fascinating aspects of consciousness is that it creates the illusion of unity. You feel like a single, unified self, even though your brain contains countless subsystems that work independently and sometimes even disagree. One network interprets sensory input, another generates emotions, another evaluates risks, another encodes memories. Yet somehow, your brain integrates all of these processes into a cohesive stream of experience. The result is a sense of I, a stable identity that gives continuity to your life. How the brain accomplishes this integration is still unknown. Some scientists believe consciousness emerges from brain-wide communication loops, like harmonies created by many instruments. Others believe it arises from complex information processing, or from patterns that reach a threshold of richness. But despite many theories, no single explanation fully captures what consciousness is. Another hidden power of consciousness is its ability to influence the brain itself. Your thoughts can shape neural pathways. When you learn a new skill, recall a memory, or shift your attention, the brain changes physically. Neurons strengthen their connections, pathways organize themselves, and networks adapt to new demands. This phenomenon, neuroplasticity, shows that consciousness is not simply a passive observer. It is an active participant in shaping the brain. Your experiences sculpt you, but your awareness also sculpts your experiences. The brain and consciousness are intertwined in a delicate, evolving partnership. What makes consciousness even more enigmatic is how fragile and resilient it is at the same time. A small injury in the wrong place can dramatically alter personality or awareness. Yet the brain is also capable of remarkable recovery. People who lose parts of their cortex can regain functions through rewired networks. Those who suffer damage to language centers can learn to speak again using new pathways. This adaptability suggests that consciousness is not tied to a specific piece of neural hardware, but to patterns. Patterns that can shift, reorganize, and emerge in new forms. Even more mysterious are the rare neurological cases where consciousness becomes altered in profound ways. Individuals with certain types of seizures describe overwhelming feelings of clarity or connection. Others with damage to sensory areas can perceive the world in unusual ways, experiencing colors with emotions or sounds with textures. These neurological variations challenge our assumptions about what consciousness can be. They suggest that our everyday awareness is only one version of a much larger spectrum. And perhaps the most astonishing fact is this: despite centuries of study, science still cannot fully explain how electrical impulses inside a dark, silent skull give rise to the vivid, warm, personal world of experience. The gap between brain activity and subjective feeling, often called the hard problem of consciousness, remains one of the greatest scientific mysteries. Consciousness is a flame without a clear source, a pattern without a fixed shape, a presence that feels both familiar and impossible to fully grasp. It is the quiet center of human life, the observer behind every thought and the companion behind every emotion. And even though we cannot fully define it, we live inside it every moment of our existence. Perhaps that is the most beautiful truth of all. The brain does not simply create consciousness. Consciousness allows you to experience being alive. Section 4. Intelligence. The brain's silent architecture of understanding. Intelligence is often described in simple terms: the ability to learn quickly, solve problems, or think logically. But in reality, intelligence is far more intricate, subtle, and expansive than those definitions suggest. It is not a single skill or trait. It is a shifting landscape of abilities, woven together through countless neural connections, shaped by experience, and quietly modified with every passing moment. In this way, intelligence is not something the brain possesses. It is something the brain does, a living process that unfolds continuously. To explore intelligence, imagine standing inside a vast illuminated library. Each light represents a neuron. Each shelf represents a network. Some shelves are highly organized, with strong connections and fast communication. Others are newly formed, still being built from scratch. Intelligence is like the way this library rearranges itself while you are inside it. Every time you learn something, every time you make a decision, and every time you notice a pattern in the world, the shelves shift, pathways rearrange, connections strengthen, entire wings of the library grow. Intelligence emerges from this constant reorganization. The brain's endless drive to understand, adapt, and predict the world around you. One of the brain's most remarkable qualities is its ability to recognize patterns. From infancy, humans quickly learn to identify faces, distinguish sounds, and detect emotional cues, long before understanding language or abstract thought. The brain is built for pattern recognition, and it performs this task with astonishing speed. Millions of years of evolution have equipped it with specialized circuits for detecting shapes, movements, colors, and rhythms. Without this, the world would feel chaotic, unpredictable, and overwhelming. But because the brain excels at categorizing information, life feels comprehensible. You see a shadow and know it is a tree, hear a tone and recognize a voice, sense a change and anticipate what might come next. Intelligence also involves the capacity for abstraction, the ability to think about ideas that are not tied to physical objects. Languages, mathematics, ethics, and imagination all require the brain to leap beyond what is immediately present. Few species possess this ability at the level humans do. The fact that you can contemplate the future, imagine a story, or reflect on a scientific concept means your brain can operate in symbolic space, constructing mental models that do not rely on direct sensory experience. This ability to represent things mentally is one of the clearest expressions of human intelligence. Another often overlooked element of intelligence is emotional reasoning. People sometimes imagine intelligence as purely logical, detached from feeling. But the brain does not work that way. Emotions shape decisions, memories, motivation, and judgment. Without emotional intelligence, the ability to understand, interpret, and regulate emotions, logical reasoning becomes narrow and disconnected. The brain's limbic system, which processes emotions, communicates constantly with the cortex, which performs higher thinking. They are not separate systems. They are partners. Intelligence emerges from their collaboration. There is also the intelligence of adaptation, the quiet, steady ability to respond to change. The brain constantly adjusts to new situations. A difficult task, a surprising event, a shift in environment, or a new challenge. Adaptive intelligence is what helps you learn from mistakes, reinterpret failures, and refine your strategies over time. It is subtle, often unnoticed, but extraordinarily powerful. Life is unpredictable, and the brain's capacity to adapt is one of its greatest evolutionary strengths. Creativity, too, is a form of intelligence, one that thrives on flexibility. Creativity is not only the ability to produce art or generate ideas. It is the ability to combine existing concepts in new ways, to see possibilities others overlook, to imagine alternate paths. When the brain toggles between networks, switching from focused attention to daydreaming, from logic to intuition, creativity unfolds naturally. This relies on neural diversity. The more experiences, emotions, and knowledge the brain has access to, the more raw material it can draw upon for creative insight. One hidden truth about intelligence is that it is not fixed. For much of the 20th century, people believed intelligence was static, assigned at birth, and largely unchangeable. But modern neuroscience tells a different story. The brain is extraordinarily plastic. Neural pathways strengthen with practice. New connections form when you learn something difficult. Entire cortical regions can repurpose themselves if needed. This means intelligence is fluid, not predetermined, not limited, and not singular. It grows with curiosity. It expands with effort. It flourishes with experience. If you expose the brain to new challenges, environments, and ideas, intelligence evolves. Another mysterious component of intelligence is intuition, the ability to arrive at conclusions without conscious reasoning. Intuition is not guesswork. It is the brain drawing upon vast amounts of stored information, patterns, and emotional cues so quickly that the conscious mind does not notice the process. When you just feel that something is right or wrong, your brain has already processed countless signals beneath awareness. Intuition is silent, swift intelligence, a hidden reservoir of insight. Intelligence also depends on the ability to learn from the environment, and this learning can happen even without conscious effort. The brain constantly absorbs information: the tone of someone's voice, the layout of a room, the rhythm of a conversation, the consequences of actions. This automatic learning shapes behavior in ways you may never notice. It fine-tunes your reactions, refines your predictions, and prepares you for future situations. Much of intelligence operates beneath the surface, quietly updating your mental model of the world. What makes human intelligence especially unique is the ability to reflect on one's own thinking. Metacognition, the awareness of your own mental processes, is like having a second-level mind that can observe the first. You can evaluate the quality of your decisions, examine your thoughts, question your beliefs, or adjust your strategies. This recursive ability allows for deep learning, self-correction, and personal growth. It is one of the rarest and most extraordinary forms of intelligence found in nature. Another hidden strength of the brain is collective intelligence. Human intelligence does not operate in isolation. Each mind is shaped by the knowledge, behaviors, and culture of millions of other minds across time. Language, technology, and civilization are products of shared intelligence, minds learning from minds, building upon insights, transmitting information across generations. No single brain could invent mathematics, music, engineering, or philosophy alone. These are the results of collective intelligence, layered across centuries like a cathedral built stone by stone. And yet, despite all scientific advances, intelligence remains profoundly mysterious. We can measure cognitive abilities, map neural networks, and observe electrical patterns, but we still cannot fully explain the spark that allows the brain to understand, to grasp meaning, discover structure, and weave experience into knowledge. Perhaps the deepest truth is this: intelligence is not a number or a score, but the ongoing conversation between the brain and the world, a dialogue that reshapes both with every interaction. Section 4. The brain's silent architects, glial cells, and the hidden conversations between neurons. For most of modern neuroscience, the human brain has been imagined as a bustling electrical city, where neurons flash and fire like tiny lightning bolts in an endless storm of thoughts. Neurons became the celebrities of the mind, spotlighted, celebrated, and endlessly studied. Yet as our tools sharpen and our understanding deepens, a quieter population of brain cells steps out of the darkness, revealing a profound truth. The brain's hidden power does not lie solely in the sparks we see, but in the silent architecture holding those sparks in perfect balance. These are the glial cells, once dismissed as biological glue, now recognized as powerful, active shapers of consciousness itself. If the brain were a symphony, neurons would be the instruments, but glial cells? They would be the acoustics of the hall, the conductor's hand guiding the tempo, the unseen adjustments that make each note meaningful. Without them, there would be sound, but no music. Let's step gently into their silent world, the overlooked majority. It might surprise you to know that glial cells outnumber neurons. Even in the most intricate areas of the brain, where neurons are densely packed like stars in a galaxy, glial cells weave around them, supporting, protecting, balancing, guiding. For decades, scientists assumed they were mere caretakers, structural fillers, passive bystanders. But as imaging techniques grew more precise, researchers observed something they weren't expecting. Glial cells weren't just sitting there. They were communicating, not with lightning sparks like neurons, but with slow, sweeping waves of chemical signals, like ripples moving across still water. This communication is quiet, almost meditative, but deeply influential. These cells affect how neurons fire, how they connect, how they learn. They sculpt the brain's networks as if they're gardeners tending a living landscape. Their silence is not absence. Their silence is control. Astrocytes, the gentle regulators. Among all glial cells, astrocytes may be the most mysterious. Their shape, when viewed under a microscope, resembles faint, glowing stars, hence their name. They wrap themselves around synapses, blood vessels, and entire neural circuits like soft, translucent hands. Astrocytes regulate the brain in ways that feel almost parental. They decide how much energy neurons receive. They clean away chemical leftovers. They shape when and how neurons talk to one another. For years, researchers believed astrocytes stayed completely silent during neural communication. But then a discovery stunned the scientific world. Astrocytes respond to neural activity with slow, rhythmic calcium waves, waves that can influence what neurons do next. Imagine someone whispering in a room full of shouting voices. The words may be quiet, but the meaning can shift the entire mood. Astrocytes whisper like that, subtle, soft, but powerful. Scientists now believe these cells may even contribute to learning, memory, and the formation of emotional states. Your calm moments, your bursts of creativity, your sudden intuitions, astrocytes might be orchestrating more of these experiences than we ever suspected. Microglia, the brain's quiet guardians. Then there are the microglia, the smallest and most mobile glial cells. They drift through the brain like vigilant wanderers, constantly scanning for trouble. When they find damaged cells or toxic molecules, they glide silently toward the problem and clean it away. But their work doesn't stop with repair. Microglia play a critical role in pruning synapses, deciding which connections stay and which fade. During childhood, this pruning helps shape personality, emotional sensitivity, and cognitive style. In adulthood, it maintains mental clarity and emotional stability. Some scientists now believe microglia may help sculpt the brain's response to trauma, shaping how memories are stored and how fear is learned or extinguished. Their influence is subtle but immense, almost like gardeners tending invisible branches in the mind's forest. And just like gardeners, they can nurture or harm. When overstimulated, microglia can prune too aggressively, potentially contributing to disorders like Alzheimer's or depression. When underactive, they may allow harmful proteins to accumulate. Understanding them fully? That challenge remains. Oligodendrocytes, the hidden accelerators. And then there are the oligodendrocytes, the engineers of speed. They create the myelin sheaths that allow electrical signals to travel along neurons efficiently, like adding insulation to a wire. But here's the surprising part. Myelin is not uniform, and oligodendrocytes adjust it dynamically depending on how often certain neural pathways are used. This means they may play a role in skill learning, habit formation, emotional patterns, resilience, and adaptation. Each time you practice a skill, playing piano, speaking a language, driving a car, oligodendrocytes respond, thickening pathways like well-worn trails in the brain's wilderness. Your brain is always listening to what you do. A silent partner in consciousness. One of the most intriguing mysteries emerging from modern neuroscience is the possibility that glial cells contribute directly to consciousness. Not in the way neurons do, with rapid firing patterns, but more like an underlying rhythm or emotional tone. Astrocyte waves move far slower than neuronal signals. So slow, they seem almost meditative. Yet these waves can synchronize across entire brain regions. Some scientists wonder if this slow rhythm acts as a kind of stabilizing layer beneath consciousness, shaping the fluidity of attention, the coherence of thought, or the ebb and flow of mood. It's a possibility that overturns centuries of assumptions. Perhaps consciousness is not just electrical. Perhaps consciousness also breathes. The hidden interplay. The more we study the brain, the clearer the picture becomes. Neurons provide the spark. Glial cells provide the context. One without the other is incomplete. Glial cells teach the brain how to respond, how to prioritize, how to adapt. They shape intelligence, emotion, and resilience in ways science is only beginning to uncover. And because they move slowly, their impact feels deeper, like the low hum beneath a song or the quiet thoughts that guide the louder ones. In their silence lies an entire world of influence. Section 5. The brain's electrical mysteries. Hidden patterns, unknown frequencies, and the symphony we still don't understand. When you close your eyes, the world around you falls quiet. But inside your brain, something extraordinary begins to happen. Patterns of electricity, gentle, rhythmic, perfectly synchronized, start sweeping through your neural networks like invisible tides. These waves are not random. They are not chaotic. They are organized, harmonized, and deeply mysterious. For centuries, electricity inside the human brain has been seen as the machinery of thought, a simple mechanism. Neurons fire and consciousness emerges. But as we look closer at the complexity of these electrical waves, a realization appears. The brain's power doesn't only come from firing neurons. It comes from the patterns those neurons create. Patterns that shift with emotion, expand with memory, and quiet with sleep. This section takes you softly through the hidden ocean of brain rhythms. The frequencies, oscillations, and electrical dances that shape every sensation you experience, and yet remain largely unexplained. Electrical waves, not just sparks. Most people imagine the brain as a place where countless sparks fire independently. But when researchers place electrodes on the scalp or inside the brain, they see something very different: waves. The brain produces a constant flow of electrical rhythms, slow, deep oscillations, and fast, delicate ripples that move across its surface like patterns on water. Each wave frequency corresponds to a mental state. Delta waves, slow, deep sleep. Theta waves, dreaming, creativity, meditation. Alpha waves, calm wakefulness, relaxation. Beta waves, focus, problem solving. Gamma waves, the high-speed binding of ideas, awareness. The calming part? These waves are not rigid. They flow. They blend. They shift naturally depending on what you're feeling and thinking. But here's what scientists still don't know: how these waves emerge from billions of neurons, and what deeper role they might play. Are they simply byproducts, or the actual language of the brain? Gamma, the brain's most enigmatic rhythm. Among all brain waves, gamma is the most puzzling. Gamma oscillations are incredibly fast, 40 to 100 cycles per second, like a shimmering vibration through the mind. They appear when you recognize a face, you connect two ideas, you feel a moment of insight, you become fully aware of something. Some researchers believe gamma waves are the key to binding consciousness together. They seem to synchronize distant brain regions, allowing separate pieces of information to merge into a single experience. You see the shape of a face, its color, its movement, and gamma waves help unify them into one coherent perception. Imagine consciousness as hundreds of musicians playing independently. Gamma waves might be the conductor that brings them into harmony. And yet, we still don't know where gamma waves originate. We don't know why some people generate more than others. We don't know why they vanish in certain neurological disorders. They are one of the brain's most beautiful mysteries, present in every moment you feel awake and aware, but still out of reach scientifically. The brain's hidden frequencies. Standard tools like EEG detect a few well-known waves, but what if other frequencies exist that we simply cannot measure yet? Some researchers speculate that faster than gamma waves might exist, oscillating too rapidly for current instruments to detect. Others suspect ultra-slow waves, spanning several seconds or even minutes, are influencing emotional states, intuition, and long-term attention. These hidden frequencies, if real, could reshape everything we know about how the brain organizes itself. Imagine if calmness had a frequency of its own. Imagine if intuition had a rhythm we haven't discovered. Imagine if consciousness were not just one wave, but a layered ocean of rhythms, overlapping in complex harmony. The brain may be playing music we have not yet learned to hear, electrical echoes and memory formation. One of the most fascinating discoveries of recent years is that memories may form through patterns of electrical activity, not just the strength of synapses. When a moment is important, a childhood event, a smell that makes you nostalgic, a flash of emotion, the brain creates a unique oscillatory signature, a waveform, a pattern, almost like a fingerprint. Later, when you recall that memory, the brain tries to recreate the same pattern again. It's as if every memory has its own melody. But this raises a deeper question. Do we remember because neurons changed their shape, or because the brain can replay electrical songs? Scientists are still debating this, and the truth may be a combination of both. The mystery of synchronization, perhaps the most extraordinary electrical behavior in the brain, is synchronization. When groups of neurons fire together in perfect rhythm, they create coherent waves that sweep across the brain like a tide. But the timing is so precise, sometimes down to the millisecond, that it feels almost impossible for such massive networks to coordinate. How do billions of neurons synchronize across long distances? How do these waves remain stable? Why do certain rhythms dominate during certain life moments? We don't know. We only know the effect. Synchrony makes thought clearer. Synchrony makes perception sharper. Synchrony may be the heartbeat of consciousness. Electricity and emotion. Emotions have electrical signatures too. Fear produces jagged beta activity. Calmness strengthens alpha and theta waves. Joy often creates bursts of gamma coherence. This means your emotional world, every subtle feeling you have, corresponds to shifting patterns of electrical energy. A quiet mind is literally quieter. A peaceful mind carries slow, steady waves, like gentle ripples on a lake at dusk. Emotions are not just chemicals, they are frequencies. patterns, waves moving through the landscape of the brain. The mystery that remains. We understand electricity well in machines. We know how it flows through circuits, how it powers devices, how it can be controlled and measured. But in the brain, electricity behaves differently. It is alive, it adapts, it changes with experience, with thought, with hope and memory. The human brain produces enough electricity to power a light bulb, yet it uses that power not to illuminate a room, but to illuminate a life. And even now, after centuries of study, we still don't fully understand how this electrical storm becomes the mind. Section 6. The brain's chemical secrets, hidden molecules, silent messengers, and the unknown conversations within you. Deep inside the brain, beneath the electrical waves and the firing neurons, exists an entirely different world, one made not of sparks, but of molecules, a world of drifting messengers, floating signals, and chemical whispers that shape everything from your emotions to your sense of self. It is easy to imagine the brain as purely electrical. Electricity moves fast, and the brain must be fast. But beneath that layer of speed lies something slower, gentler, and far more mysterious. Neurochemistry, the language of molecules, the quiet conversations between cells, the chemical decisions that shape every moment you feel alive. This section explores the hidden chemical universe within you, one that scientists understand only partially. Because for every well-studied neurotransmitter, there are dozens whose purpose remains unknown. For every mapped pathway, there are hundreds more waiting to be discovered. And for every emotion we think we can explain, there is a molecular story that still escapes us. Beyond dopamine, serotonin, and the usual narratives, most people have heard of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin. They are often simplified into catchy labels: dopamine, the reward chemical; serotonin, the happiness molecule; oxytocin, the bonding hormone. But the brain is far more complex. These molecules do not act alone, and they are not simple switches for emotion. They influence each other, interact with electrical patterns, and participate in chemical cascades that behave more like ecosystems than linear systems. And more importantly, they are not the only players. There are over 100 known neurotransmitters, and possibly many more undiscovered, each with unique effects on the mind. Some act like fast messengers. Others drift slowly, shaping your mood for hours. Some work in one region of the brain. Others spill across vast networks. Every thought, every memory, every feeling is influenced by the chemistry of the moment, and much of that chemistry is still a mystery. The hidden molecules no one talks about. While dopamine and serotonin dominate popular science, other chemicals operate quietly in the background, shaping your experience in profound ways. Anandamide, named after Ananda, the Sanskrit word for bliss, subtly affects mood, memory, and pain perception. GABA, the brain's calming molecule, reduces electrical noise and creates stillness. Glutamate, the primary excitatory neurotransmitter, fuels learning, but in excess becomes dangerous. Endorphins, natural opiates, modulate pleasure, but also emotional resilience. Neuropeptides, long-chain molecules that influence hunger, stress, bonding, and even intuition. And then there are the molecules we barely understand, obscure peptides that appear only during deep sleep, chemicals that fluctuate during trauma and remain stable for decades, compounds produced only during intense meditation, unidentified molecules that appear in neural cultures but not in living brains, yet their purpose remains unknown. These hidden messengers create an internal environment so complex that every brain, like every fingerprint, becomes chemically unique. Your mind has its own molecular signature. The conversation between chemistry and electricity. For decades, scientists debated which was more important, electrical signals or chemical messengers. But now we know they are inseparable. Electrical activity triggers chemical release. Chemical release alters electrical patterns. This interplay creates delicate feedback loops, like a conversation where neither side dominates. When you feel stressed, your brain releases cortisol and adrenaline, which alter neural firing patterns. When you relax, molecules like GABA and serotonin help slow everything down, restoring balance. Even thoughts can shift your chemistry. Simply imagining a peaceful scene can reduce stress hormones. Remembering a painful moment can alter levels of neurotransmitters instantly. The brain is not a machine. It is a changing environment, a chemical landscape shaped by experience, perception, and emotion. Neurochemistry and the mystery of emotion. Every feeling you experience, every subtle wave of sadness, every spark of joy, every quiet moment of contentment has a chemical component. But emotions are not simply chemicals released in the brain. They are chemical patterns shaped by experience and filtered through memory. For example, love is not oxytocin alone. It is a blend of dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, and long-term hormonal changes. Anxiety is not just adrenaline. It involves GABA, glutamate, cortisol, and rapid shifts in brainwaves. Happiness is not serotonin by itself. It is a dynamic, ever-changing balance between numerous molecules. This is why scientists still cannot define a single chemical signature for any emotion. Emotions are emergent, born from the interaction of dozens of molecules and electrical waves. They exist between chemistry and consciousness. The mystery of neurochemical diversity between people. One of the most intriguing discoveries is that each person's brain chemistry is subtly different. Two people can feel the same emotion, yet their molecular signatures may be entirely unique. This diversity explains why. Two people respond differently to the same stress. Some feel calm naturally, while others struggle. Creativity varies dramatically between individuals. Experiences like happiness or sadness have different intensities for each person. Your brain has its own internal balance, a chemical fingerprint shaped by genetics, life experiences, sleep patterns, diet, stress, and even the environment you grew up in. And no one else on the planet shares the same blend. Even identical twins eventually diverge. Unanswered questions in the chemistry of the mind. Despite everything we know, enormous gaps remain. Why do some molecules appear only during dreams? Why do emotional memories last a lifetime, while factual memories fade? How does a thought trigger a chemical change? What new compounds might exist that we haven't discovered yet? Could there be molecules directly related to consciousness itself? These questions remain open, and that is part of the beauty of the human brain. It is a universe within a universe, full of mysteries waiting to be uncovered. Section 7. The brain's hidden networks, secret pathways, silent hubs, and the architecture we still don't understand. If you could gently lift the human brain into your hands, not touching it, just imagining it, you would be holding the most complex structure known to exist in the universe. With its folds, valleys, shimmering networks, and hidden pathways, the brain appears almost like a cosmic map carved into living tissue. But what makes it truly extraordinary is not the visible surface. It is the networks that lie beneath, the invisible threads of connection, the circuits that flicker with meaning, the communication routes that form the essence of thought. Some networks are well known. We can point to the visual cortex, the hippocampus, the prefrontal regions. But beneath these familiar landscapes, there are hidden pathways, massive highways that coordinate your sense of self, silent hubs that regulate your awareness, and ghost-like circuits that activate only under rare conditions. Many of these networks remain only partly understood. Some were discovered accidentally. Others are inferred from behavior rather than directly observed. This section explores those hidden networks, those secret structural and functional pathways that scientists are only beginning to uncover. In these unseen patterns lies much of what makes you you. The brain as a city of light. Imagine the brain as a vast city at night. Millions of lights flicker across different neighborhoods. Highways connect distant districts. Some areas shine brightly, full of activity. Others rest in near darkness. And deep below the surface, tunnels and hidden chambers hum with purpose. This city analogy is more accurate than it sounds. The brain uses major communication networks, neural highways, to keep everything coordinated. These include the default mode network, associated with self-reflection, imagination, and daydreaming. The salience network, which helps you decide what matters at any given moment. The executive control network, which handles planning, attention, and decisions. These networks are enormous, spanning multiple regions, and they operate together like synchronized constellations. Yet, here is the mystery. Even though these major networks are well mapped, they rely on countless smaller circuits, secondary routes, shortcut pathways, deep connectors that scientists have barely begun to understand. The brain's visible networks are like the major highways on a map, but the hidden networks are like the tiny roads, private passages, and forgotten tunnels that truly define how a city flows. These hidden circuits may explain why brains can be creative, unpredictable, emotional, intuitive, and uniquely human. The unknown highways deep inside the brain. Some of the most mysterious pathways lie not near the surface, but deep in the center of the brain. One example is the claustrum, a thin, irregular sheet of neurons buried deep inside each hemisphere. It is so thin you could almost miss it entirely, and yet this tiny structure appears connected to nearly every major region of the brain. Some scientists believe it may play a role in integrating consciousness itself, or at least in synchronizing different sensory experiences. But the truth is, we don't fully know what it does. Another example is the insula, a region hidden beneath the frontal and temporal lobes. It regulates subjective feelings, pain, hunger, disgust, empathy, internal awareness. but its deep networks extend far beyond those functions. The insula might be one of the brain's master coordinators, constantly assessing the internal state of the body and blending it with emotion and decision-making. But again, much of its structure remains poorly understood. These hidden hubs are like secret command centers, influencing enormous amounts of behavior with signals we can barely detect. And then there are pathways that appear only in certain states, like meditation, extreme focus, or dreaming. Some circuits activate only when the brain is entirely at rest, as if the mind uses periods of silence to perform secret internal work. Functional networks we can't fully explain. Long before advanced brain imaging existed, scientists believed that regions had specific functions. One area for speech, another for movement, another for vision. But modern scanning has revealed something far more complex. The brain operates in networks that overlap, change, reorganize, and adapt constantly. For instance, when you think about yourself, the default mode network activates. When you focus on a task, the executive network steps in. When something unexpected happens, the salience network decides what to do. But here is where the mystery deepens. These networks are not fixed. They blend, merge, and shift depending on the situation. A region involved in memory might also assist with emotion. A region involved in vision might help with imagination. The boundaries blur, overlap, and change depending on what the mind needs. This flexibility, this shape-shifting of networks, is something AI still cannot imitate. Machines tend to operate in rigid, predetermined patterns. The human brain, by contrast, adapts its networks fluidly, almost artistically. And beyond this dynamic flexibility, there are networks we've only begun to identify, like the immobilization circuit, the introspective pathway, or the creative bridging network. They appear only under rare conditions, such as deep creativity or profound emotional experiences. The brain connectome, a map that doesn't sit still. Scientists have created maps called connectomes, massive diagrams showing how each region connects to others. These maps look like exploded galaxies of neon lines, like spider webs lit from within. But unlike a map of roads or circuits, the connectome is alive. Connections strengthen or weaken. Some pathways appear only after learning something new. Others fade when they are unused. Entire networks can reroute themselves after injury, creating new ways to communicate. This adaptability is called neuroplasticity, and it makes the brain more like a living ecosystem than a machine. But here's the extraordinary part. Despite the billions of connections in the connectome, scientists estimate that we understand less than 5% of its functional meaning. We can see the map, but we don't yet understand the language it speaks. The brain's secret activity patterns. Some neural patterns seem to have no clear purpose. For example, ripples and waves of synchronized firing pass through the brain during deep sleep, possibly transferring memories, but no one knows how. Random patterns appear during rest that seem chaotic, but may actually prepare the brain for learning. Ultra-slow brain waves move across the cortex at speeds far slower than typical neural firing, shaping awareness in ways not yet understood. Transient bursts of activity appear in emotion centers for milliseconds at a time, triggering complex feelings that last for hours. These patterns are like the weather of the brain, internal climates and storms we cannot yet fully predict or interpret. And then there are the moments when networks suddenly change their organization, like an internal shift of gears. These transitions may define states such as creativity, introspection, awe, or insight. What causes these shifts? How does the brain decide when to reorganize itself? What hidden signals initiate these transitions? These questions remain largely unanswered, a network wrapped in mystery. The brain's hidden networks are not just scientific curiosities. They may be central to understanding consciousness, memory, creativity, and emotion. And yet, for all our discoveries, the deeper architecture of the brain remains largely out of reach. We are mapping a universe within us, but we are still only at the beginning. There is so much more waiting beneath the surface. More pathways, more circuits, more secret hubs, and more hidden patterns quietly shaping every moment of your experience. Section 8. The brain's uncharted senses, hidden perceptions, silent signals, and the abilities we don't realize we have. Most people think humans have 5 senses: sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch. But the truth is far stranger and far more beautiful. The brain quietly uses dozens of additional senses every moment of your life. Some you feel only faintly. Others shape your behavior without ever entering your awareness. Some operate like subtle internal instruments, constantly taking measurements: temperature, pressure, balance, chemical levels, and time. Others detect things we can hardly name. These hidden senses are not mystical, they are biological. But they reveal just how little we truly understand about perception. This section takes you into the world of the brain's uncharted senses, the abilities that hover below consciousness, the signals we detect without knowing, and the perceptions that may explain intuition, emotional resonance, and the brain's stunning adaptability. The senses you didn't know you had. Long before the brain interprets colors or words, it processes dozens of internal signals. Scientists now estimate humans have at least 18 to 22 senses, and possibly more. Some of them include proprioception, the sense of body position. Close your eyes and raise your hand. You know exactly where it is without seeing it. This is proprioception, a quiet, reliable perception created by specialized nerve endings in muscles and joints. It is one of the most essential senses, yet most people never think about it. Without proprioception, walking becomes nearly impossible. Writing is difficult. Movements feel disconnected from your body. It is not controlled consciously. The brain constructs a real-time map of your body's position using silent signals you never notice. Interoception, the sense of internal state. You know when your heart beats faster. You know when you're hungry. You know when you're anxious, even before you think the anxious thought. This awareness is interoception. It informs emotional awareness, stress levels, decision-making, intuition. People vary widely in how strong this sense is. Some feel every internal shift. Others barely feel any at all. Scientists believe that variations in interoception may explain differences in empathy, resilience, and even personality. It is one of the brain's most mysterious senses because it blends physical signals with feelings. It represents the boundary where biology becomes emotion. Chronoception, the sense of time. Inside your brain are oscillators, tiny biological clocks that estimate time without looking at a clock. Chronoception lets you feel how long a moment lasts. It influences consciousness more than we realize. But here is where it becomes strange. Time perception is highly elastic. Fear slows time. Boredom stretches minutes into hours. Flow states make hours disappear into seconds. How the brain measures time is still not fully understood. It may involve multiple regions working together: the cerebellum, basal ganglia, frontal cortex, but the coordination remains unclear. The sense of time remains one of the brain's greatest mysteries. Nociception, the sense of pain. Pain feels emotional, but it begins as a sensory signal. Yet pain is not simply transmitted. It is interpreted. Two people with the same injury may feel different pain intensities because the brain constructs the experience using attention, expectation, emotion, memory, context. Is not a direct sense. It is a perception built from many senses blended together. And this raises fascinating questions. Why does emotional pain activate similar circuits? Why can distraction reduce pain? Why do memories shift the experience? Pain, in many ways, reflects the mystery of consciousness itself. Hidden perceptions we rarely notice. Beyond the extra senses, the brain constantly detects subtle cues in the world. Micro-expressions. The brain can read tiny muscle movements on someone's face, sometimes in less than 100 milliseconds, before you consciously realize anything happened. This is why people often sense a mood instantly. Emotional contagion. Humans pick up on the emotions of others unconsciously. One person's calmness can slow another's heart rate. One person's panic can raise adrenaline in a group. This happens through hidden neural mechanisms, not fully known, that mirror other people's internal states. Magnetoreception. Possibly. There is growing evidence that humans may have a weak ability to detect Earth's magnetic field, similar to birds and fish. It may influence orientation or the sense of direction subconsciously. We can't consciously feel magnetic fields, but small experiments show the brain responds to magnetic shifts in specific conditions. The mechanism remains unknown. The brain detects patterns before you know it. Another hidden sense is the brain's ability to detect patterns long before the conscious mind catches up. The subconscious brain recognizes danger milliseconds before awareness, predicts movement before you see it, fills in missing visual details, understands tone faster than words, judges trustworthiness within a fraction of a second. This predictive processing may be the closest thing humans have to intuition. It's not magic, it's fast, subconscious computation. But the speed and complexity of these predictions make them feel instinctive. The exact circuits that make this possible are still being mapped. Some lie deep in the amygdala, others in the prefrontal cortex. But many are hidden, transient networks that activate only in the moment prediction is needed. This gives the brain a sense we rarely acknowledge. the sense of future possibility. The senses that blur the line between mind and body. Some senses combine internal and external signals in ways that challenge our understanding of perception. The vestibular sense, balance, motion, gravity. Tiny crystals in your inner ear tell you which way is up, how fast you're moving, whether you're spinning or still. Yet the vestibular sense interacts with emotion, memory, and spatial awareness. Stress can distort balance. Trauma can disrupt motion perception. Meditation can calm vestibular responses. No one fully understands why this sense is so deeply linked to emotion. Thermoception, temperature. Temperature detection is deeply tied to comfort, survival, and emotion. But the brain also perceives social warmth and coldness in overlapping pathways, suggesting that physical and emotional warmth share a neurological foundation. The line between body and mind grows thinner the deeper you explore. Are there senses we haven't discovered yet? Many neuroscientists believe humans have additional senses that remain unnamed because we haven't yet learned how to measure them. For example, how do you sense when someone is staring at you? How do you detect sincerity or deception instantly? Why do you feel someone's presence before they speak? How does the brain create the feeling of self from raw data? These perceptions may not be separate senses, but combinations of hidden signals that create new mental states. Some may involve networks we haven't mapped. Others may rely on molecules we haven't identified. And some may require entirely new scientific frameworks to understand. The human brain is still full of sensory secrets, whispers from within and clues from outside, woven together into your experience of being alive. Section 9. Dreams, Memories, and the Brain's Secret Replay. The inner cinema we can't fully explain. Have you ever awakened from a dream and wondered, where did that world come from? Dreams feel intensely real in the moment, yet ephemeral and fleeting upon waking. They are some of the most intimate experiences of the human brain, a private cinema, a theater of the mind, constructed entirely from internal signals, memories, and mysterious patterns of activity. Yet, despite centuries of study, dreams remain one of neuroscience's most beautiful enigmas. This section explores the brain's hidden mechanisms behind dreaming, memory, and mental replay. These processes reveal the brain's astonishing ability to construct realities that feel as vivid as the waking world, while quietly reshaping cognition, emotion, and even identity. The architecture of dreaming dreams occurred primarily during REM, rapid eye movement sleep, when the brain is highly active, almost as active as when awake. During this state, neurons in the visual cortex fire spontaneously. Limbic regions, emotion centers, glow with activity. Prefrontal areas, responsible for logic and reasoning, become less active. The result is a vivid, emotional, often illogical experience, a world created entirely inside your head. Interestingly, the brain does not simply replay events from the day. Dreams often combine fragments of memory. imagination, and abstract thought into scenarios that feel plausible yet surreal. A single dream might weave together a memory from childhood, a scent experienced yesterday, and a fear you've never consciously acknowledged. Some researchers suggest dreams serve a kind of simulation function. They allow the brain to practice emotional responses, problem solving, or social interactions in a safe, consequence-free environment. Memory consolidation in the dreaming brain. One of the brain's most fascinating hidden abilities is how it stores and consolidates memories while you sleep. During REM and deep non-REM sleep, the hippocampus replays neural activity from the day. The cortex integrates new information with old knowledge. Synapses are strengthened or pruned, shaping what is retained. This process is not random. The brain appears to prioritize memories that are emotionally significant or behaviorally important. In effect, it acts like an editor, quietly deciding which experiences are worthy of long-term storage and which can fade. Dreams may serve as a side effect, or perhaps a signal, of this internal editing process. When you dream, your brain may be rehearsing, re-experiencing, and reorganizing life's data, blending old and new into cohesive patterns. Some scientists even suggest that creativity arises in part from this nocturnal activity. By recombining memories in novel ways, the brain may generate innovative ideas, artistic inspiration, or problem-solving insights, all while you are asleep. The mystery of lucid dreams. Lucid dreaming occurs when the dreamer becomes aware that they are dreaming, sometimes gaining partial control over the dream narrative. Neurologically, lucid dreams are intriguing because they involve simultaneous activation of prefrontal regions responsible for self-awareness and planning, visual and emotional networks, motor simulation areas. This creates a unique state, conscious awareness embedded within the unconscious activity of the brain. Lucid dreams suggest that the brain can inhabit multiple levels of reality simultaneously, blurring the lines between subjective perception and internal simulation. Some researchers explore lucid dreaming as a tool for emotional regulation, overcoming phobias, or even enhancing creativity. It is a striking example of the brain's ability to manipulate its own networks to create new experiences without any physical input. The brain's hidden replay mechanism. During sleep, the brain engages in something remarkable. It replays sequences of activity from waking life. These replays are not identical to reality. They are compressed, distorted, or reordered, but they serve multiple purposes. Learning reinforcement. Practicing skills or actions while asleep strengthens neural connections. Problem solving. Dreaming may present challenges or scenarios that allow the brain to experiment with outcomes. Emotional processing. Dreams allow the mind to re-experience emotional events safely, reducing stress or trauma over time. Even animals engage in neural replay. Rats navigating mazes show patterns of hippocampal activity while sleeping that mirror daytime movements. Humans, however, take this to a more complex level. Our replay involves not only spatial and procedural memory, but also abstract thought, imagination, and social dynamics. Memory, emotion, and the dream connection. Emotions are deeply interwoven with memory consolidation. Emotional intensity often predicts which memories are retained and which fade. Dreams reflect this. Highly emotional experiences tend to appear repeatedly in dreams, sometimes decades later. Interestingly, the brain often exaggerates or reshapes these experiences during dreaming. Minor events may become epic dramas. Fleeting sensations may emerge as profound symbols. This distortion is not a flaw. It may serve an adaptive purpose, amplifying emotional lessons and deepening understanding. Some researchers propose that dreams act as an emotional sandbox, allowing the brain to experiment with social dynamics, fear responses, and desires in a consequence-free setting. The unknown power of memory networks. Memory is not stored in a single location. It is distributed across vast networks. The hippocampus, prefrontal cortex, amygdala, and even the cerebellum collaborate to encode, store, and retrieve experiences. Synaptic connections strengthen or weaken constantly, allowing old memories to be updated with new context. But there are layers we barely understand. Certain memories fade, yet influence behavior unconsciously. Some memories are stored chemically rather than electrically. Networks appear to sleep until triggered by context, scent, or subtle cues. In effect, the brain holds a vast, multidimensional archive, much of which we cannot consciously access. Dreams may be the closest glimpse we get into this hidden storage, a private screening room where past, present, and imagination converge. The brain's internal cinema. What emerges from all of this is a startling realization. The human brain is a theater, a rehearsal space, and an archive rolled into one. Dreams, replayed memories, and hidden network activity create a rich internal cinema, one that operates largely outside our conscious control. You are, each night, participating in an intricate symphony of electrical patterns, chemical signals, network activations, memory replays, emotional processing. All of these converge to maintain your sense of self, your emotional resilience, and your ability to adapt, create, and imagine. And yet, despite centuries of study, we understand only fragments of this internal film. Much of the brain's nocturnal activity remains a mystery, a hidden world of infinite variation and silent orchestration. A glimpse into the unknown. The dream mind illustrates the brain's ultimate paradox. It is at once familiar and unknowable. You live inside it every day, yet much of its power lies in hidden processes you can barely perceive. Every dream, every replay, every subtle emotional rehearsal hints at the brain's capacity for imagination, adaptation, and self-reflection. It is a reminder that the human mind is not merely a container of memories and knowledge. It is a living, breathing system of networks, molecules, and waves, quietly building your reality, sculpting your thoughts, and weaving the invisible fabric of your consciousness. And the quietest revelation of all, the brain continues its hidden work even when you sleep, even when you forget, even when you believe nothing is happening. Inside this private world, entire realities unfold, each night, silently, beautifully, endlessly. Section 10. The brain's adaptive genius, how it changes, repairs, and reinvents itself. The human brain is often imagined as a fixed organ, defined by genetics and early development. Yet nothing could be further from the truth. Every experience you have, every thought you entertain, every sensation you feel subtly rewires your brain. This process, known as neuroplasticity, is the brain's secret power, the quiet ability to adapt, repair, and even reinvent itself over a lifetime. In this section, we explore the astonishing ways the brain adapts. From recovery after injury to the subtle recalibration of networks during learning, the brain demonstrates a resilience and creativity that borders on the miraculous. The plastic brain, constantly rewiring. Neuroplasticity is the brain's ability to change its structure and function in response to experience. For decades, scientists believed that once childhood passed, the brain's architecture became largely static. Now we know that adult brains remain remarkably flexible. Plasticity occurs at multiple levels. Synaptic plasticity, strengthening or weakening connections between neurons. This is fundamental for learning and memory. Structural plasticity, formation of new neurons, dendrites, and synapses. Even in adulthood, certain brain regions can generate new neurons. Functional plasticity, shifting functions from one region to another, especially after injury. Every moment of practice, every emotional experience, every meditation session subtly reshapes the brain. Imagine a city where roads appear, disappear, or reroute themselves depending on the traffic. It is an ever-changing map of connections, constantly adapting to the demands of life. Learning and memory, sculpting the brain. When you learn a new skill, playing an instrument, speaking a language, solving a puzzle, your brain physically changes. Repeated practice strengthens certain synapses and networks. Myelin, the protective coating around neurons, thickens around frequently used pathways, increasing the speed and efficiency of communication. Memory is intertwined with plasticity. When you recall a memory, the act of remembering subtly alters it, reinforcing some aspects and changing others. Over time, memory becomes not just a static archive, but a living, adaptive reflection of experience. This constant sculpting ensures that your brain is never entirely the same from one day to the next. You are, in essence, a continuously evolving structure, shaped by your thoughts, actions, and environment. Recovery after injury, the brain's remarkable adaptation. Neuroplasticity is perhaps most remarkable when it allows the brain to recover after injury. Strokes, traumatic brain injuries, and even some forms of neurodegenerative disease can initially disrupt function. Yet in many cases, the brain reorganizes itself. Neighboring regions take over the lost functions. Alternative pathways are activated. New synaptic connections are formed to bypass damaged areas. For example, if one hemisphere of the brain is damaged, the other can sometimes compensate for language, motor control, or sensory processing. Children in particular exhibit astonishing recovery due to heightened plasticity. but adults retain significant adaptive potential as well. This capacity reveals that the brain is not a rigid machine. It is a living system capable of self-repair and reconfiguration, often in ways that defy expectations. Experience shapes brain architecture. The brain's plasticity is intimately tied to experience. Environments rich in stimulation, learning new skills, exploring novel places, social engagement promote growth and resilience. Conversely, deprivation or chronic stress can weaken networks, impair cognition, and alter emotional regulation. Even subtle activities, like mindfulness meditation or focused attention exercises, can produce measurable changes in brain structure and connectivity. Regions associated with attention, empathy, and emotional regulation expand with practice, demonstrating the brain's responsiveness to conscious effort. In this sense, every moment of life participates in shaping your internal landscape. Your mind is not simply a passive recipient of information. It is an active, evolving system, continually sculpted by the interplay of experience, thought, and behavior. The brain and emotional adaptation plasticity is not limited to cognitive skills. Emotional networks, too, adapt. Over time, exposure to challenging experiences, trauma, or stress can reshape emotional processing pathways. Similarly, repeated positive experiences, social bonding, and supportive environments enhance resilience. The brain learns emotional patterns just as it learns motor skills or cognitive strategies. Therapy, meditation, and reflective practices leverage this adaptability, helping the brain rewire itself to respond to life with greater balance, calm, and flexibility. Even subtle shifts, like reframing a thought or practicing gratitude, can cascade through neural networks, producing changes in both perception and physiology. The brain's plasticity allows emotion to become both malleable and resilient, giving rise to a dynamic internal world that mirrors experience. Neuroplasticity across the lifespan. While the brain exhibits its greatest plasticity in childhood, adult brains continue to evolve. Learning new languages, mastering instruments, or engaging in novel experiences maintains and strengthens connections. Physical activity enhances blood flow, growth factors, and synaptic efficiency. Mental engagement stimulates network formation and integration. Research even suggests that the brain can generate new neurons, particularly in the hippocampus, a region associated with memory, throughout adulthood. This phenomenon, called adult neurogenesis, provides hope that cognitive abilities can continue to develop and recover well into later life. The brain's adaptability emphasizes a profound truth. Your mind is never fixed. Every thought, every choice, and every experience contributes to a subtle, ongoing evolution of your neural architecture. The hidden creativity of plasticity. Plasticity also underlies the brain's capacity for creativity. Novel combinations of thoughts, unusual associations, and imaginative problem-solving emerge from flexible networks capable of reorganizing themselves. When the brain encounters new challenges, it often discovers pathways that did not exist before. making connections between previously unrelated regions, synthesizing fresh ideas, and producing insight. This adaptability is not mechanical. It is intuitive, almost artistic. The brain is constantly experimenting, rehearsing, and recombining, producing outcomes that can surprise even its owner. The limits and mysteries of plasticity. Despite decades of research, many mysteries remain. Why do some networks recover after damage, while others cannot? How does plasticity vary among individuals at a molecular and network level? Can the brain reorganize itself to overcome all forms of cognitive decline, or are there boundaries? How does plasticity interact with consciousness, emotion, and memory in ways we cannot yet predict? Every discovery in this domain seems to raise deeper questions. The brain is not simply adaptable. It is almost unknowable in its complexity, a system of infinite interconnections that we are only beginning to grasp. A quiet reflection. The human brain's adaptive genius is a profound reminder of the elegance and resilience inherent in life. It shows us that no experience is wasted, no challenge is permanent, and no moment of growth is impossible. Even in injury or decline, the brain retains a quiet, patient capacity to rewire, repair, and create new possibilities. This adaptability underscores the beauty of being human. Each thought, each choice, and each experience matters, not just in the moment, but in the intricate unfolding of neural life. You are not only living in the world, you are constantly reshaping your inner universe, silently, gracefully, and endlessly. And perhaps the most inspiring aspect of all, the brain does this without fanfare. It works quietly, invisibly, and ceaselessly, orchestrating the unfolding of mind, memory, and identity, every moment of every day. Section 11. The brain's connection to the body, hidden signals, silent feedback, and the mind-body symphony. The human brain does not exist in isolation. It is intimately entwined with the body, connected through a vast network of nerves, chemical messengers, and feedback loops that regulate every sensation, movement, and internal rhythm. Yet much of this connection operates silently, without our awareness. The brain and body communicate constantly, shaping perception, emotion, and behavior in ways we are only beginning to understand. This section explores the hidden interplay between the brain and body, an elegant, dynamic, and largely unseen symphony that governs life itself. By looking closely at these subtle interactions, we uncover how deeply integrated the mind and body truly are, and how this connection shapes experience, health, and consciousness. The nervous system. Highways of silent communication. The nervous system is the brain's most immediate link to the body. Every sensation, touch, pressure, vibration, temperature, travels through specialized nerves to the spinal cord and into the brain. Motor signals travel the opposite direction, orchestrating movement with precision. Yet the nervous system is more than a simple two-way conduit. Alongside the conscious signals we notice, Countless autonomic signals flow beneath awareness. Heart rate modulation, digestive activity, respiratory rhythm, pupil dilation, hormonal balance. These signals continuously inform the brain about the state of the body, allowing it to adjust responses before we are even aware. For instance, the brain can sense dehydration, minor imbalances in electrolytes, or subtle shifts in blood pressure long before we consciously notice discomfort. It is as though the brain is constantly listening to a hidden orchestra of physiological signals, interpreting patterns, and adjusting behavior in real time. The gut-brain axis, a second brain, perhaps the most fascinating connection between the brain and body is the gut-brain axis. The gut contains an extensive network of neurons, often called the second brain, capable of processing information independently of the central nervous system. This network communicates with the brain via multiple pathways. The vagus nerve, a direct neural highway connecting gut and brain, hormones and neurotransmitters released in the digestive system, immune signals indicating inflammation or microbial changes. The gut produces neurotransmitters similar to those in the brain. In fact, a significant portion of serotonin, the chemical often associated with mood, is produced in the digestive tract. This means your gut can influence emotions, motivation, and even cognitive clarity. Emerging research suggests that subtle changes in gut microbiota may affect anxiety, memory, and overall mental resilience. In other words, the brain listens to the body, but the body also quietly shapes the brain. Interoception, the hidden sense of internal state. The brain's ability to sense internal bodily states is called interoception. Interoception provides continuous feedback about heart rate, hunger, thirst, respiratory effort, internal temperature. This feedback is critical not just for survival, but for emotion, decision-making, and self-awareness. A racing heart signals stress. Mild hunger can shift focus and creativity. Subtle changes in breathing influence calmness and alertness. People vary in interoceptive sensitivity. Some are acutely aware of internal cues, while others barely register them. Strong interoception often correlates with emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and the ability to regulate behavior in complex situations. The hormonal symphony. The brain-body connection extends into the endocrine system, where hormones circulate like chemical messengers, influencing mood, energy, growth, and immunity. Some key interactions include cortisol, the stress hormone that signals the brain to prepare for challenge. Adrenaline creates the fight or flight response, altering heart rate, muscle tension, and alertness. Oxytocin promotes bonding, trust, and social connection, released in response to touch or positive social interaction. Melatonin regulates sleep and circadian rhythm, providing feedback about light exposure and internal clocks. These hormones create a subtle, ongoing dialogue between the body and brain, shaping behavior and perception even in moments of stillness. The brain's influence on physical health. The connection between brain and body is bidirectional. The brain not only interprets bodily signals, but actively modulates health. Consider Immune function. Neural activity influences inflammatory responses. Pain perception. The brain can amplify or dampen sensations of pain based on attention and context. Healing. Stress and positive emotional states can accelerate recovery. Chronic stress can hinder it. Cardiovascular regulation. The brain controls blood flow, pressure, and rhythm with remarkable precision. This demonstrates that mental states, conscious or unconscious, subtly guide bodily processes. The brain is not a passenger in the body. It is the conductor of an intricate, interdependent system. The subtle signals we rarely notice. Most brain-body communication is invisible. You rarely think about how your stomach subtly signals your satiety or hunger, how minor blood sugar shifts influence focus and mood, how your brain anticipates movement before you initiate it, how subtle pain signals guide posture or activity. Yet these signals are constantly shaping behavior, perception, and emotional state. Every step, thought, and breath is influenced by an ongoing exchange between neural networks and bodily systems. It is a quiet, elegant, and ongoing performance, a dialogue we often ignore, yet one that sustains life itself. Mindfulness and awareness of body signals. The modern practice of mindfulness and meditation emphasizes awareness of these hidden signals. By attending to subtle bodily cues, breathing, heartbeat, tension, sensations, we can reduce stress, enhance emotional regulation, improve focus and memory, strengthen the connection between body and brain. Research shows that deliberate awareness of interoceptive signals can rewire networks in the brain, enhancing both perception and cognition. In other words, paying attention to your body can change the way your brain functions, creating a positive feedback loop of well-being. The brain-body symphony, a unified system. The brain and body operate as a single, unified system. The flow of information is continuous, dynamic, and bidirectional. The body informs the brain. The brain regulates the body. Networks of neurons, chemical messengers, and hormonal signals work in concert. Hidden feedback loops ensure survival, adaptation, and growth. This unified system underlies every sensation, thought, and emotion. It reminds us that cognition, feeling, and perception are never isolated. They are emergent properties of a deeply interconnected biological orchestra. Reflections on the hidden symphony. Consider the sheer elegance of this system. Every moment of life involves countless invisible signals, exchanges, and adaptations. The brain does not merely react, it anticipates, integrates, and subtly modifies every aspect of bodily function. Every heartbeat, breath, sensation, and thought is part of an ongoing, silent conversation. Understanding this connection gives us a profound sense of wonder. We are not merely brains living in bodies. We are living, sensing, adapting systems in which the mind and body are inseparable, constantly shaping one another in ways too intricate to measure completely. The brain's hidden dialogue with the body is one of life's quiet miracles, a constant, elegant symphony, humming beneath awareness, shaping every second of existence. Section 12. The hidden potential of the human brain. Unlocking abilities we haven't yet tapped. The human brain is an ocean of potential, most of which remains undiscovered. Every neuron, every synapse, every oscillating wave contributes to an intricate network whose capabilities surpass our current understanding. While we have mapped regions for language, memory, and movement, the subtle potentials, the hidden powers, often go unnoticed. This section explores the frontier of the brain's untapped abilities, from extraordinary memory feats to latent sensory perception, revealing the astonishing possibilities that lie within each of us. Memory beyond ordinary limits. Humans can train their memory to astounding heights. Memory champions can recall hundreds of random numbers, memorize decks of cards in order, or remember vast sequences of visual images. These feats are not magic. They are demonstrations of the brain's latent plasticity and organizational potential. Techniques such as visualization, association, and spatial mapping leverage networks that remain dormant in everyday life. The fact that anyone can improve memory through training hints at a fundamental truth: the brain holds potential far beyond ordinary usage. Most people operate with only a fraction of the strategies their neural networks could deploy, and the untapped potential remains a vast landscape waiting to be explored. Synesthesia, blending the senses. Some individuals experience synesthesia, a condition in which stimulation of one sense evokes experiences in another. A sound may evoke a color, a number may have a taste. Though rare, synesthesia demonstrates the brain's latent capacity to form extraordinary connections between sensory networks. It is as if the brain can create bridges that transcend ordinary perception. Linking previously isolated neural pathways. Neuroscientists suggest that synesthetic experiences are remnants of early neural cross-connections that most brains prune as development progresses. Yet in those who retain them, the result is a richer, more intricate perception of reality, a window into what the human brain could potentially achieve if different neural patterns were activated. Unconscious learning and intuition. The brain can process enormous amounts of information unconsciously, far exceeding conscious attention. Patterns, probabilities, and subtle cues are often integrated into decisions without awareness. This is the basis of intuition, a rapid subconscious computation of possibilities and outcomes. Athletes, musicians, and experts in diverse fields often rely on this hidden processing. A tennis player feels the ball's trajectory before it crosses the net. A chess master senses an impending threat before consciously analyzing the board. This demonstrates the latent computational power of the brain, operating silently beneath the surface of conscious thought. The brain's adaptive imagination. Humans can simulate scenarios in extraordinary detail. The brain rehearses actions, envisions futures, and constructs entire imagined worlds, often indistinguishable from reality while experienced internally. This imaginative capacity is not limited to dreams. It permeates planning, problem-solving, and creativity. Artists, engineers, and scientists harness this ability to explore possibilities that do not yet exist. The brain can mentally model complex systems, predict outcomes, and invent solutions without direct physical interaction with the world. It is a hidden power that combines memory, spatial reasoning, and abstract thought into a seamless internal laboratory. Latent sensory and motor skills. Beyond the senses we commonly recognize, the brain retains the potential for extraordinary sensory perception. Studies in sensory substitution, such as using touch or sound to see for blind individuals, demonstrate the brain's capacity to repurpose neural circuits. The visual cortex, for example, can process tactile or auditory information in the absence of sight. Similarly, motor potential remains dormant until trained. Novices may struggle to balance, dance, or coordinate complex movements. Yet with practice, the brain can develop fine-grained motor skills previously unimaginable. These examples suggest that the boundaries of human ability are often limited more by exposure and training than by biology itself. Flow states, unlocking hidden performance. Flow, the state of complete absorption and effortless performance, represents one of the brain's hidden capacities. During flow, prefrontal activity decreases, reducing self-criticism. Neural efficiency increases, streamlining cognitive and motor functions. Time perception alters, enhancing focus and creativity. Flow states are not random. They are achievable through deliberate practice and engagement. They illustrate that the brain can temporarily reconfigure itself to operate at heightened levels, bypassing ordinary limitations. In these moments, latent abilities emerge, creativity flows, intuition sharpens, and memory and coordination peak. It is a glimpse into what the brain can accomplish when its networks align in optimal synchrony. The brain's unknown possibilities. Neuroscience has barely scratched the surface of what the brain can achieve. Advanced imaging, molecular mapping, and cognitive research reveal tantalizing hints. There may be undiscovered ways to enhance perception or memory. Certain neural networks might remain dormant, awaiting activation. Subconscious processes may govern abilities we cannot yet quantify. The interaction of mind, body, and environment could unlock previously hidden capacities. These mysteries suggest a vast frontier of human potential, a landscape where abilities are not fixed but are waiting to be realized. The inspirational secret. The most inspiring aspect of the brain's hidden power is its silent accessibility. Unlike genetic lottery or innate talent, much of the brain's latent ability can be nurtured. Practice, attention, and intentional engagement shape neural networks, expanding capacity. The brain itself is an ever-evolving instrument, capable of growth, adaptation, and transformation across a lifetime. Even simple changes, mindfulness, learning new skills, or intentional creativity can awaken latent networks. Every choice, every thought, every moment of focused attention nudges the brain toward fuller expression of its potential. A journey into the infinite mind. The human brain remains one of the most mysterious and beautiful structures in existence. From the quiet orchestration of hidden senses to the replay of memories in dreams, from adaptive plasticity to latent powers yet untapped, it reveals the depth of possibility inherent in each of us. Perhaps the most profound realization is that we live not just inside a brain, but inside a universe of untapped capacity, endlessly shaping and reshaping itself. Every moment is a chance to explore, to awaken, to deepen the connections between mind, body, and world. In contemplating the hidden power of the human brain, we are reminded that life itself is a symphony of thought, perception, and possibility, a calm, intricate, ever-unfolding dance in which the potential of mind stretches infinitely, silently waiting to be realized.